Good afternoon. A long day and very distinguished speakers since this morning. And we just also had a distinguished panel of international companies. And I have the pleasure to moderate a panel where we have the equivalent heavyweights of the Turkish energy sphere. And this morning we heard from Fatih Birol of the importance of investments in the energy sector in order to be able to secure the future supply of energy according to the needs. And from our Minister Yildiz, we have heard that Turkey will need $8 to $10 billion each year of investments into the electricity sector alone. And we have also talked much about oil and gas, how these commodities and their supply is developing. We heard that natural gas with the shale gas and other unconventional resources and so on and so forth will be maybe abundant worldwide, but the prices, at least in Europe, are not very likely to drop significantly, at least. These were some headlines. And looking at Turkey, our Turkey Energy Outlook panel, I would like to start with Turkey's need on oil and gas. And nobody can tell us better than Mehmet Sepil how Turkey can get hold of the oil and gas it needs, since you are producing oil and gas in the very close vicinity of Turkey. I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you. Let's start with oil, I guess. Because it's probably going to be a hot subject today. We have, in Turkey, we have two pipelines coming to Turkey. One is BTC pipeline, and the other is Kerkük-Ceyhan pipeline. BTC pipeline is operational, of course, today. But unfortunately, Kerkük-Ceyhan pipeline, since March, there is no output coming from that due to the problems I'm sure everybody realizes. And now, with the events of the last few days, that problem actually became probably a bigger problem. I'm sure everybody here is watching what's happening in the Sunni areas in Mosul. So Turkey needs, if Turkey is going to be a hub for oil, it definitely needs this Kerkük pipeline to be operational too. If we go back about 10 years ago, it was Turkey's intention to also have another pipeline from Samsun, through Samsun to Ceyhan, to carry the Russian gas, but it didn't happen. So today, Kerkük pipeline, if you come to Kerkük pipeline, with all the last events developing in the region, it looks like the twin pipeline system will probably not work for years to come, or maybe at least months to come. I shouldn't go to say years to come. Why? Because now this Mosul area became a more problematic area. But on the other hand, this might also be a good news for everybody if Baghdad and Erbil come to their senses and agree on a pipeline, because now there could be a chance to divert that pipeline from Kerkük to Ceyhan to carry both Kerkük oil and Kurdish oil. It can easily be done because as a company we are very much involved in it. It can easily be done. I mean, it can carry up to a certain capacity in the next few months, but then additional capacities can be definitely added up in a matter of months. We know it could be done. So that's the oil side of Turkey. I mean, unfortunately, Turkey can produce like 6 or 7% of the oil, but there's a lot of oil that could be used coming from Iraq, especially northern Iraq and Kirkuk side of Iraq and Sunni areas in the, if it will be possible to get it in the future. I mean, the plan of North Kurds was to export over 1 million barrels of oil until the end of 2017, which was achievable if we forget all the other political problems. Of course, this will be great. I mean, then maybe this refinery project that was discussed for years in Ceyhan, in Mersin area, could come to a reality. On the gas play, actually, Mr. Birol also stated. Now, I mean, Turkey has Turkey almost, unfortunately, has no gas. I mean, it's, I think, only 1 or 2% of the gas being produced in Turkey. Shale gas is a good hope. Shell is trying to find some gas on Mediterranean coast. I mean, these are hopes, but we don't know whether these will contribute to Turkish gas supply. And Turkey is getting, other than LNG, gas from 3 different sources. One is Russia, which is very dominant, and then Azerbaijan and Iran. But now, as Mr. Birol today rightly asked, I mean, there's a lot of diversification. I mean, now Turkey has a great chance, not only to be a hub, but also to get more gas from other sources, mainly from Iraq and also from East Med. I mean, when we say East Med, we mean Israeli gas, which is already discovered, South Cyprus gas, which is discovered. I mean, not to a great potential, but we'll know soon. Lebanese contracts are coming. I mean, so if we add this East Med plus the available Kurdish gas, because we know there is more than at least 15 TCF of gas that's discovered in Kurdistan today, which is a huge quantity. So putting all those together, I think, you know, in the next coming years, like 3 or 4 years, Turkey can diversify the gas supplies, which will be very good, because probably I'm going to stop now, but this gas, this amount of gas, we shouldn't only consider it for the usage of Turkey, but we can create a lot of different industries around it, and plus we can definitely export it to Europe.
Thank you. Well, as we all know, Turkish gas demand is growing in a fast pace, driven by power generation on one hand, but residential use and also industrial needs. And Zorlu Enerji is another player in the gas arena. And Sinan Bey, what do you think about the prospects of gas production in the region and the opportunities and challenges for Turkey?
Okay, actually, let me add some words about the Mediterranean gas and the Iraqi gas and Turkish potentials and how we can use this gas and what challenges that we have. If we take a look at the Turkish consumption of gas is about 45 BCM as of last year, and it's going to be a little bit higher than that in 2014. And in the future, you know, we are making some serious analysis, and at the end of the day, we come up 3 scenarios, where one of the scenario is, the gas consumption stay as it is in the following 5 to 10 years because of the coal power plants that are going to be in operation and the high efficient gas plants that are going to take place of the low efficient plants. And the other side is, if we have a competitive gas price and gas market, then the consumption of the gas can go up, and then gas power plants can be done more than the coal power plants. So there are a couple of alternatives. But when you look at the future, there is a dilemma that we see, because if the total if you bring more gas, you have to sign contracts with long-term contracts with the parties in Turkey, and this is something that we are not used to do it, and this is something that we have to figure out how we can do it in the future. So the gas in Leviathan field and Cyprus and the Iraqi gas are waiting there. But, if that gas comes to Turkey, who will buy it, okay? Because there is already consumers and there is already, suppliers. So whether you have to bring additional potential players, who can consume the gas, or you will go and compete with the current gas suppliers. So if the consumption doesn't go up, this is another problem that I see right now in front of the new gas fields that are going to come into the market. So if they come from private, if the private people, companies bring the gas to Turkey, then they will go and compete with the current ones. Besides, we have seen on the news, the negotiation going on between Iran. We are trying to reduce the gas price with Iran, and the thing that they are saying is, okay, you have to buy more gas from us if you want us to lower the prices. And this is what the Russians are saying as well. So I think this is going to be an interesting challenge for everybody in the future. About the demand and the supply of the gas, and who will bring it, for how much, what will be the cost, what will be the price, who's going to buy it, and so on. So, from my point of view, this is a good opportunity for Turkey. I think Turkey will benefit from additional gas. And the prices of the gas will at least be maybe most probably lower than this, or stay as it is in the future.
Thank you very much, Sinan Bey. Now, having heard about the Turkish opportunities and challenges related to oil supplies and gas supplies, as well as the demand projections, the scenarios Sinan Bey just presented, I would like to move to the electricity sector. This morning we have heard both from Güler Sabancı and also Minister Yıldız that the Turkish electricity market, at least, has made significant steps into liberalization in order to attract the necessary investments. And one of the investors who have invested heavily into this sector is AK Enerji, and I would like to hear from Ahmet Danışman about his opinion about the development of the liberalization of the Turkish power market.
Thank you, Selahattin Bey. I think liberalization of the energy sector, especially in the electricity side, we can divide it into 2 phases, pre-2000 and after 2000. second half of 1980s, the first BOT law was enacted, and at that time, during 90s, build to operate transfer or build to operate type of projects have been financed in Turkey. The reason was the government was not able to raise funding for these investments, and they were looking for private companies to do it. So that was the first attempt, but there was no funding available in Turkey from Turkish banks, so the finance had to come from abroad, and that was linked to export credit agency coverages available for Turkey, which was limited also, like German Hermes limit was $50 million at that time, where you were trying to make an investment of $500 million. So it was a big challenge. So Turkish electricity sector has come from a long, long way. In Europe, at the same time, similar development took place, but in a sort of different path. During this period, gas, more efficient combined cycle gas-fired power plants have been built both in Turkey and Europe. In Italy, in Spain, in United Kingdom, CCGT, new build CCGT increased from 1% to 40%, 2% to 50%, and 19% to 30%. So new gas was coming, clean energy, more efficient CCGTs were built, not only in Turkey, but also in Europe. Similar development took place. After the enactment of energy market law in 2000, new market was merchant. So there was no government-backed power purchase agreements. Private sector had to take the full risk of the market and finance it from its own means. There's a big change in this concept. So, and in time, local banks started to fund all these investments. And today, we have only probably Turkish banks who are funding energy investments in Turkey. Very few, but maybe non-foreign banks are directly funding. The market is promising, that's for sure. In 1990s, the generation was 60,000 gigawatt hours. In 10 years, year 2000, it increased to 128,000 gigawatt hours. In 2010, 210,000, and as of today, it's more than 245,000 gigawatt hours. Demand is in the market, and by 2023, this is expected to be more than 400,000. So there is the demand for sure. We witness years or periods of difficulties, but the fundamental is there. Finance is also available for the moment for those projects who have good sponsors and strong economics. Private sector involvement has been increased tremendously. It started by 6% in 1990s. Today, in the total generation, more than 40% is with the private sector. That means about more than 40,000 new investments was built since year 2000 by private sector. That would represent something like $60 billion, roughly, of investment funded by private companies. On the distribution side, it's another story. Distribution is, within the last 5 years, 100% of the electricity distribution network is privatized. Around $13 billion of privatization money raised from public companies. The costs of generation, operation costs, operational liabilities are shifted to the private companies. Efficiency improvements, theft and loss improvements, and new capacity investments, growth, hundreds of millions of dollars of investments are being done every year by distribution companies. So in total, when we look at it, we also witnessed recently the tenders for government-owned generation assets, which raised easily more than $5 billion in a couple of tenders. So we are talking about $80 to $100 billion of private sector cash spent within the last 10 to 12 years in Turkey. This is a significant figure. So government is very successful in this respect, I must admit. On the other side, what about the end users, consumers? Have they benefited from this? My answer is yes. Eligible customer limit is reduced down to 4.5 megawatt hours per year, which is like anybody who has 135 Turkish lira monthly invoice, electricity invoice, is eligible. And there is very tough competition on the retail market, which means eligible customers are benefiting from the discounted electricity prices. So in that respect, this is also a success. When you look at the subsidies, renewable energy investments are also taking place in Turkey, but the subsidies or the figures that the government is proposing is nothing to comparable with the Western world. It is also very reasonable. So the market price is almost equal to the subsidy price. So from this angle, it's electricity side is quite successful from public point of view and the customer point of view. But if you wish to hear what's the investor's point of view, maybe later.
I will come to that in the next round.
Yeah.
Ralf Jäger, you represent AVE, an international investor who is active in the Turkish market, who has invested into a Greenfield plant in the Turkish market, and who has experiences in many other countries throughout Europe. And how would you see the investment climate in the Turkish energy sector?
Thank you, Mr. Hakba. Just to give the opportunity, because you pointed it out, it was just actually a Greenfield investment. And that is something what is not normal, I would call it. When we looked in the years before in the history of RWE, we normally just acquired companies, went into the countries and looked for regulation and just for the liberalization. In this case, we have done it differently because we tried to adopt the Turkish style a bit more, just on a greenfield level, just looking for a project. The project was available at the time. And then secondly, just looking for a partner. And that was really quite important. I mean, we went through a journey from 2010 to 2014 now, and just executing a project where there was a high uncertainty. It was not clear to us how to manage such a project in a non-European country. And be honest with you, we were quite happy when we got just the license, and actually we are producing since August last year power. So this was an experience for myself, for the team, which was quite beneficial. I think that is really, really something where you can say Turkey is attracting foreign investors, and that is really something what needs to be underpinned. The other point where I have the concern, and Mr. Danishman just brought it up, that was the question of liberalization. That was the question of liberalization, because at that time, when we made the decision just to enter the market, we believed that a liberalization will come, and then we helped together just with other companies, just trying to get the liberalization train just running. So for me and for us, it's quite important if we are just seeing step by step that the liberalization on the power market will happen. And for me, a fundamental question is about when will APH come? And I think I'm not quite sure what happened this morning, what the minister said. Did he make any statement about that? Because I'm really thinking it's important for us. The other example, or let's say the other thing, is just what needs to be done on the regulatory side is for us, as someone who having a gas-fired power plant, that is just a regulation which is synchronizing the system operators. On one hand, we have APH, and on the other hand, we have BOTAŞ. I think that needs to be synchronized, and that is our concern as someone who made an investment, and we want to see the return on the long run as well.
Thank you. So we have been talking about the development of and the liberalization of the market, some aspects which need to come. I will try to go deeper into that in the next round. But this morning we also have heard many times how important the use of local indigenous resources in Turkey is, especially considering the Turkish current account deficit and energy's contribution to that deficit. And I would ask Adil Tekin to give us a view from also the technological point, what opportunities are there to transform Turkish local resources into electricity.
Thank you, Selahattin Bey. I will start with the easy one, in fact. When we talk about local resources for Turkey, we have hydro, we have solar, we have wind, we have lignite and coal. Hydro is the easiest one. I think the technology is mature, we have no question. And today, when we look at the realization of Turkish hydro potential is around, I think around is 78, almost 80%. And by 17, we will have around 30 gigawatt installed in Turkey in hydro. And left potential will be around 5 to 6 gigawatt, depends on the economical feasibility of the projects. This is, I think, we can put aside hydro, I think, doing quite well in Turkey. And when we go to wind, I think this is one we should look. In wind, we estimate around 20 gigawatt potential. Right now, we have 3 gigawatt in operation, and we have another 1 gigawatt maybe under construction. That means we have another 15 gigawatt to go. And I do believe technology is there. I think we have nothing to say. Turbine sizes is growing. Now we have 3 gigawatt, 3 megawatt, 4 megawatt per unit. And this is, I think, enough mature to invest. And when we go to solar, photovoltaic, is now becoming really, even with the Turkish feed-in tariff, seems to be starting to be feasible. And here we see maybe around 30 gigawatt potential. There is a long way to go. And in this technology, I think there is a lot to go as well. Even today, if we are able to start investing in Turkey, this is a good chance, and we can further put on. And the last one I want to really talk a little bit is about coal, because this is the one has a big size to address the issue of trade deficit of Turkey. Today, when we look at the, as Ahmed Bey stated, from 2000 up to now, private investors take a lot of risk and invest a lot. And 40 gigawatt was installed. When we look at the success, hydro is okay, as you said, gas is okay, but lignite, unfortunately, was not really following this trend. And in the beginning of 2000, we had 8 gigawatt installed. Today, unfortunately, it's only 10 gigawatt. That means in the last 10, 14 years, we did only put additional capacity by 2 gigawatt, which is really, really very low compared to the huge potential in the country. So we see today only in Afshin, 10 gigawatt potential is there. You see many news. The government is trying to find some governmental military model to develop those projects. When we look at the technology for clean power from coal, we do believe there is a technology. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were talking about 35% efficiency. Today, we talk about 40%. 10 years ago, we talk about 300 megawatt unit size. Today, we can talk about 700 megawatt for even Afshin. We studied it. We can today install 700 megawatt unit in Afshin coals. That shows how the technology, where the technology comes. And in addition to that, efficiency, cost, and now, of course, emissions. With a strong emissions control systems, with the efficiency increase, I do believe Turkey is now should focus more and more to mobilize this 20 gigawatt potential in the lignite to be able to address the trade deficit. In addition to that, the supply security.
Thank you. And next to the indigenous resources, in every aspect, addressing the energy trilemma or the triple challenge, we heard almost from every speaker until now how important energy efficiency is. And I think GE, as a company working on these fields, Canan Hanım can give us an overview what can be done in Turkey.
Thank you, Selahattin Bey. I think I have the best question of the first round, and my peers have very nicely covered the challenges and opportunities in investing in energy in Turkey. Like every emerging nation, Turkey's biggest need is also energy. The more you grow, the more energy you need, and thinking that we have started from a low base, energy security is an important issue. When we look at GE, we have a long history of developing technologies for different aspects of energy and other areas of industrialization. And we've been in Turkey and in the MENA region for a very long time. When we look at the region and Turkey, we see three important areas that we can contribute and, as an investor as well as a technology provider. One of these areas is what Mehmet Bey started with, is making Turkey a hub of transportation and petrochemicals. We live in a neighborhood which is resource rich, and we are a country that is resource poor. So we could take that transportation and petrochemical hub opportunity and be a leader gradually through investments and projects for our region. And the second area is where Adil Bey mentioned a little bit renewables, using Turkey's own resources and generating energy from our water, from our sun, from our wind, and especially in wind, we see significant opportunities. Technology allows us to have efficient energy generation in this privatizing market. But last but not least, the thing that Turkey can benefit the most from is energy efficiency. It is the, I think, cheapest form of energy, and every saving we can make is going to come back to us as areas of improvement and further financing. When we look at financial corporations, whether they are ECAs or our local financial institutes, when you have a project of energy efficiency and also renewable energy, financing these projects are quicker and easier, as obvious return on investment is there to see. Our government has in the recent years made big incentives, investments, and regulations regarding energy efficiency. And one important area that I could give as an example here, and that we are very much interested in, is LED transformation. And the government has started from outdoor lighting, looking into ways, means, regulations, and standards to make that transformation. Today, the bill of outdoor lighting to the Ministry of Energy is over $400 million. And we know through technologies that we could reduce that by 50% at least. And if you can extrapolate this data to cover government buildings, hospitals, 20 million households gradually, even LED lighting transformation can bring important savings to Turkey's ever-growing energy bill. The other area where we think there is great efficiency opportunities is distributed power. Distributed power, to say it very simply, is generating energy at the point of consumption. And when you do this, you automatically save a lot from your losses in transmission, and you can bring up to 90% efficiency into the system. We see increased use of cogeneration and trigeneration technology in high energy consuming facilities, and in a country where we are very big and fast growing in construction, these high energy consuming places like hospitals, shopping malls, hotels, airports present an important opportunity to save energy through distributed power. Given the high savings rates and efficiency, we expect this trend to grow even further. The use of smart technologies in the energy value chain, as power makes its way from points of production to our homes, enabling significant energy efficiency potential. Through use of smart technologies, we can reduce shutdowns, increase continuity of supply, upgrade the quality of the power, and optimize the use of our assets. But in the second round, I'm going to talk about some very interesting numbers that are enabled by brilliant machines and analytics.
So perfect. Our audience should wait for the value of your next part.
I will have the last question of the long day, huh?
Yes, yes. Except for if there are further questions from the audience after that. This we shall see. Now, Canan Hanım has also mentioned Turkey's aspirations to develop to an energy hub, more than being only a transit country, to an energy hub, particularly on the gas side. Mehmet Bey, what do you see are the chances of Turkey to develop to an energy hub, to a natural gas hub, where the trading of the gas also takes place?
Again, probably we should discuss new sources. I mean, because I mean, all these with all these projects going, I mean, TANAP is online, and then I think you still need new resources. Not because we are in Kurdistan, but you really need it. I mean, my friend, you know, said, "Well, do we need this amount of gas?" But there is another reality here. Any new gas means cheap gas. I mean, Turkey, if Turkey is going to bring Kurdistan gas or Israeli gas or South Cyprus gas, it's going to be much cheaper than the gases we are buying today. It has to be. I mean, any entrant to the market has to come up with a much lower price. That lower price could be for long years, if there is also some geopolitics related to it, or could be at least for a few years. And if you go back to the examples, even like Azerbaijan example, I mean, look at the Azerbaijan gas prices 4 or 5 years ago. It was much cheaper than today. So gas diversification definitely also will mean much cheaper gas. I mean, this is for sure. To make Turkey a hub, I mean, so I think we should raise the question in another way. What could Turkey do more also on the gas to come to a point where you have a hub? First of all, I mean, there should be more effort on upstream, downstream, midstream companies to make it happen. I mean, whether it will come from EastMed or it will come from other country, there should be more efforts. Turkey should be a part of that game too. I mean, like the other big players, like the other countries do. We should have all these companies organized to make it happen. Actually, Turkey has moved, has done a lot in the last 5 years. I mean, now they have established a new company other than TPAO called TEC to probably deal with, starting with Kurdistan oil and gas, and you know, we'll also get probably involved with the other countries. So we don't have to invent Rome again. I mean, there are a lot of examples in the other countries where we could create a lot of national companies, semi-national companies with private sector, and also encourage private sector, like our friends sitting here, you know, who's involved with, who's trying to get EastMed gas, and help them. Once you have it, then once you can organize all this, then the game is clear. I mean, of course, in Turkey, as I told before, you know, you can create a lot of values around it. I mean, like Canan Hanım said, first is petrochemical. Why should, you know, that will be a great value. You know, geologically we are at the right place in the world. So a good petrochemical facility in Turkey on the Mediterranean probably will be much more feasible than a lot of its competitors in the future. Also, again, gas to Europe. I think it will be needed, you know, in the future. Why? Because it could be a cheaper gas. I mean, if we assume that all these diversification is not going to lower the price, then I don't think it makes sense to bring them to Turkey.
Thank you, Mehmet Bey. So, Sinan Bey, we have been also talking or hearing about the investment needs, not only in the electricity sector, but also into the infrastructure on gas. And we have heard that there were significant developments on the liberalization of the electricity markets. What do you think about the liberalization of the natural gas market, its impacts on triggering necessary investments, as well as the dual-play electricity and gas market liberalizations?
Thank you. Actually, it's coming to the same point that we discussed and that Mehmet Bey said. If we have enough gas in Turkey and if we have diversified gas from different sources, then the market will be liberalized by itself. Today, it couldn't happen because, almost 60-70% of the gas comes from Russia, and you cannot have a liberalized market if you have only one source. So it needs to be diversified. It needs to come more and more. And as a result, there will be, I agree, the prices will go down most probably, or it has to go down. I don't know. Sometimes the markets act differently, but it has to go down. And as a result, the electric market should benefit out of this deal. So today, almost 20 BCM of gas is consumed in the power plants, as far as I see. So the remaining is used in the industrial areas and also in the households. We need at least maybe 20-30% cheaper gas in order to, have the power plants, have more gas power plants that can be constructed in Turkey. Otherwise, they cannot compete with it. So everything says that, okay, the gas price has to go down. So when we made an analysis, and, if you want to make a gas plant or a coal power plant, what is the difference with the pricing? We took all the investment costs and everything, and what we see is the gas price has to go down below $250 if you want to have a very profitable gas power plant. Otherwise, there's a challenge. So what I think is, what the numbers shows is, the gas price with all this coming price gas has to go down at least, or somehow, and as a result, the market in Turkey, in the electric market, will have a better valuation as well from the electric prices. Today, there is too much difference, the cost from the cost of production. When you look at the hydros and wind farms, the hydros that are owned by the government has no cost at all. The new ones that has been constructed, they have a lot of cost actually, not fixed costs. They have lots of fixed costs that needs to be paid. On the other side, the wind farms, they have the same challenge. There are too many fixed costs. But when you look at the coal price, it's very low, and it immediately comes in the first line of the merit order. And when you look at the gas, it's way above. And we have gas power plants in Turkey, which are relatively new, like 7-8 years old, and they are at the end of the row, and they work like 20% of the year right now. So we took a decision to shut down one of it, which is 10 years old, and we took a decision to, we may take a decision to shut down another one. So it's 7 years old. So this is a loss for the Turkey as well, because now it's at the end of the row. Why? Because the price of the gas and the coal and the others are not balanced well. So we have to let the market to balance itself, so that new investments should come according to that. And I think the gas, additional gas, is the starting point of that part, I guess.
So from what we heard through the speeches today, and assuming that for a healthy market the costs need to be reflected, we need to create a huge competition in order to come to such levels of gas prices. If you look into what Turkey is paying today for the gas to import it, there we need to create a huge competition, as Mehmet Bey also mentioned, in order to maybe approach these levels you mentioned. Ahmet Bey, you just in your first round contribution, you mentioned that the liberalization in the Turkish market went along with the targets of the government, and customers benefited from that, but you left it open, the view from the investor side.
Yes, well, investor side is, of course, not necessarily the same always. Energy investments are long-term business. You have minimum 3 to 4 years to develop and finance the project, 3 to 5 years to build, construct the project. That means you have 7 to 8 years to start generating electricity and then start making money. Sinan Bey has just mentioned that they're shutting down a plant in 7 years after it becomes in operation, which is similar to our cases as well. So normally a plant life should be 30 to 40 years depending on the plant, but nowadays it's not the case. So especially on the gas side, efficiency is very important. New technology, high efficient plants, when they come into the market, they wipe out the less efficient ones. This is true. In Turkey, gas side is still very much controlled. The price control, cross-subsidization takes place on both our side. The average import price of gas and market selling price of gas is something like 20% less. So it's the BOTAŞ is selling gas cheaper than it imports. But some way this is managed within the government entities. So the message is the price, the cost is not necessarily reflected in the end price, which is electricity. In an environment where we claim that there's a merchant market, there should be no intervention. Intervention should be minimum. If you have any kind of intervention on the supply side by pumping cheap electricity just to control the price, or cutting down the demand to reduce the generation, or directly or indirectly subsidizing or cross-subsidizing the gas cost, this is somewhat intervention, and that makes it difficult for private companies to envisage a long-term perspective. Forecastability becomes very difficult. And in our case, the only thing is to look at assumptions and make a long-term market forecast to make an investment decision. The smallest investment decision in our case is $500 million to $1 billion. For this, you can make maybe 20, 30 manufacturing plants. Here, you can make only one plant, actually. This makes a big difference. So, of course, you look at the economic and political stability, that's for sure, on a long-term basis. You look at the fair market conditions and transparency. The legal system should be just, because if 30 years you are not here, nobody is around from the same crowd who built the plant. But your investment has to be protected on a long-term basis. When you have all these, of course, then you will look at the economic viability of the feasibility of the project. There you look at the demand and supply. And demand data comes from where, basically on the electricity side, comes from TEİAŞ projections, economic growth figures, demographic figures, and comparison of per capita energy consumption of Turkey versus European or OECD averages. So these kind of tools are used to make forecasts, to make these very high capital investments. One major risk is exchange rate. When you make an investment decision, if the exchange rate is $1, 1.5 Turkish lira, your project can be quite feasible. But 5 years later, if the exchange rate becomes $1 is 2.2 Turkish lira, then you are losing 40% of your revenues in terms of dollars. Your debt is in dollars. This type of investments are technology driven. In the gas, coal, and wind, probably investments are from 75 to 85% imported equipment. That means you have to borrow money in dollars. In dollars, you have to pay it back in dollars. Your revenues are in Turkish lira. Simply with the exchange rate loss, you have to earn more, or the tariff has to be increased by that much to compensate this investment. If market does not give you this, then you're in trouble in terms of debt service. And that means next decision for future investments. This is, I think, one of the major risks for investors in the sector.
So investing predictability is essential. There are items which you cannot control anyhow, but there should not be added in regulatory unpredictability on top of that.
Yes, maybe I can add one more thing. There is very tough competition in the market. You are selling your electricity on the retail side by 2 to 4% maximum margins. And at the end of the day, if you receive an invoice from TEİAŞ for the renewable cost, YEKDEM cost to pay back, that can easily wipe out your expected revenues, which you cannot foresee and judge in advance. This also has an impact. So these kind of surprises should not take place in the market. I fully understand and respect that some sectors, some industries can be subsidized or incentivized, but at the end of the day, the cost should be shifted to the end users, the customers, not necessarily the market players.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralf Jäger, you, in your first contribution, you mentioned IICEC. And I know that you are one of the main drivers of the development of IICEC as RWE, together with Turkish, together also with Enerjisa. What are your expectations from IICEC? IICEC, the energy exchange, and how do you think this will contribute to enhance the investment climate in Turkey?
Let me pick that up what Mr. Danishman said at one point. It was just a predictability. That means actually, as a businessman, I need to be able just to forecast my investment or just my business plan. And that would be only possible, I would say, if I'm just really understanding supply and demand. And that is something what on the gas side, would solve some problems as well. So I'm looking forward, and that was in the first statement was my point, that IICEC itself would be established. And that means for me that we have a system which is giving us on a transparent way the possibility to bring together supply and demand. What is crucial for me is just not where IICEC is, just if it's in Ankara or in Istanbul. For me, it's really important that IICEC is giving us the freedom to act independent on a transparent platform in a neutral way. That means actually that we have the chance as participant at the market to define what are the products and actually that the standard is at that level, for instance, on the IT side, that from foreign countries you are able just with your experience to contribute to that as well. It needs to be customer friendly. That's of course something what I'm thinking is quite important. Yeah, it does not make sense to customize or design something what is just not standard in other countries. I think there Turkey has to overcome to include the Turkey-specific things, but actually just utilizing what's available and not reinvent the wheel then. I'm hoping really as someone that EPH has given me the possibility to predict more when I'm doing an investment, what comes out, yeah? Because at the moment, when I'm looking on the gas side, I'm really heavily depending, as you said, on the supply. And actually just, I'm thinking there needs to be more steps as well, including just, for instance, the gas, the gas supply and actually gas demand on APH as well. Because that could be the transport platform. Yeah. And for us, it's really just leverage our investment and making sure that on the long term we have our returns, yeah, what we invested.
Thank you. Now we have been talking about, there was much talk also about developing renewables, and on the other hand we were talking about the possibility of declining fossil fuel prices or even subsidies on fossil fuel prices, like it is the case in Turkey with natural gas. And this puts a challenge in front of the development of renewable plants in order to allow them to compete with the fossil fuel plants. Adil Bey, what do you think from the technology side, also from the market side, what can be done and what can we expect to be developed to make renewables more competitive?
Thank you. I think after I hear that from Ahmet Bey, he already closed some of the gas plants from Zorlu Group as well. I think in an ideal world, if you really want to push the renewable, you should start at least think about when there is no sun, there is no wind, what's going to happen. Are we going to just close, sit in the dark, or we are ready to pay capacity waiting to come online when there is no wind or other renewables? For ideally, normally we should talk about capacity market. In addition, today we are talking APH, which we are going to trade electricity price, and you will have a basis for the future to see the future of the price in the future. This is kilowatt hour, but we should start talking about megawatt cost and price, and how we can establish a market for that, so that we have a capacity market on standby and really motivating or driving renewables to be established more. If we are not ready for that, I believe it is the best way is to look at what is the economy says, what is feasible to do, and we do it. So I have, in fact, 4 items to talk about how we can really promote those. Number 1 is capacity market. 2, we need storage, which is, in fact, Turkey is lucky because of hydro. We have around, by 17, we will have around 25 gigawatt hydro with reservoir dams. That means a storage already in place. That means we don't need to really worry about the grid management. And we have also quite flexible gas power plants to come online with high efficiency, flexible ones. And then wind solar today has a feed-in tariff, I believe, is achievable, feasible because of high capacity factor in Turkey and capex, etc. So all of them is there. I think this is a decision we have to decide, or maybe the government has to decide, to not really destroy the market, current market structure. We have to decide if we go this way, we need a capacity market. Otherwise, we will face a very big shortage, and then we will think about what to do when we have the shortage, like in Europe expected. We see in Germany now 40 gigawatt almost solar, and then there is no sun. They are enjoying the overcapacity there today. We cannot say there is no problem. There is a problem, but today it's not really on the table. Suddenly it may come, and when it comes, it will cause some GDP maybe due to shortage in the industry and etc. So I believe the main issue, we have to decide what we want to do. Technology is there. I don't want to talk about technology because it's there. I was thinking also for John said it is very good, very efficient to produce the energy in the place we consume. This is very good because we have a scenario now, several scenarios, to 2035, and one of them is PV net. What if in 2035 solar is boomed and let's say 60-70% of the energy is coming from solar? And the scenario shows that we need to develop strong smart grid, invest heavily in the automation to be able to manage the load and supply side. And when you are investing heavily in the smart grid, in automation, you are saving in the super grid, which is expected to transmit the energy from the big size power plants established several hundred kilometers outside the consumption area. So it is balancing. So, but I don't want to discuss or talk about that. I think it is a short-term grid technology is there in Turkey. We don't have an issue. Look at 5 gigawatt in wind. License is there, but it's not mobilizing. So we have capacity to put more renewable in grid. There is a capacity. I think there is something missing. Part is this mechanism to not really destroy the current installed base, and to not really demotivate the existing renewable projects. Thank you.
So you are saying that capacity markets is one of the ways to support the development of investments in renewables.
And protect the others.
So, Canan, you already in your first round speech mentioned smart technologies, and Adil Bey just also mentioned the smart technologies which are needed. And you have promised us very interesting figures. What are those?
So, coming back to the value of energy efficiency, I'd like to mention 4 things. One, I'll talk a little bit about new technologies and their power to transform. I'm going to talk about the importance of 1%. I'm going to talk about empowering consumers. And I'm also going to talk about the interesting figures. What does 1% efficiency or savings mean? Adil Bey has very nicely mentioned new technologies. We need, besides the capacity market, capacity-driven markets, we also need new technologies. In GE, we believe you can continuously improve and reinvent by listening to the need. Thomas Edison used to say, I go out and listen to people's needs and come back and invent it, which is pretty much after 150 years what we are still doing. There is new technologies we and a lot of other technology companies are working on in storing renewable energy. One of the shortcomings of renewable energy in markets like us, which work in the merit order, is that you don't know when the wind is going to blow or the sun is going to shine, and when it does, you cannot store it. So one technology that will come is that in the current wind power, in the current gas power plants, in the current solar technologies, there is still room for improvement and getting more efficiency. If you will remember 20 years ago, 10 years ago, the efficiency of gas-powered plants, they started from 40% and even less, and today they have reached, as Mr. Kayser also mentioned in the morning, to 61%, and I'm sure there is still room for improvement. But besides that, okay, when we talk about energy efficiency, I think one of the most important groups that can benefit from that is the consumers. If you will remember the transformation in the telecom industry, how tough it was when I was a child to telephone to Ankara. You needed to ask for it. and wait for it, sometimes up to 2 days at home and not know when you're going to be connected, to having a smartphone today that can do much more than connecting you to the people you wanted to speak to. And you can select, I want to use 1,000 SMSs and 200 minutes of talking and 2 gigabytes per month of internet access. So the same thing has already started happening by the privatization of the electricity distribution. And as Mr. Danışman mentioned, you can choose, you can be an eligible consumer. I'm not. My bill is 98 Turkish liras. I seem to be doing very efficient.
In 2
very
years' time
efficient.
you will be,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
It will be zero.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So 98 Turkish liras is what I pay, but people with different levels of consumption can always have a choice to choose. And the smart technologies that is coming into distribution from home to high voltage distribution is going to enable savings. So when we look at the electricity value chain or electrical energy value chain, from the fuel extraction to the point of consumption, the maximum net efficiency that we can obtain is around 30%. 65% of the overall loss takes place as the energy is transformed from chemical to mechanical and at last to electrical energy. There is 2% loss on the average from energy consumed in production and transmission stations, and an additional 3% is lost as heat in the transmission and distribution process. So this means we have a 30% share to use efficiently, so even 1% of that 30% means a lot. The benefits of smart grid technologies would directly or indirectly help us use that 30% with minimum loss. One last comment is about marriages. I think it's an interesting topic for all audiences. This one is a marriage of machines and analytics. The world in our lifetime, looking at the average age in this room, went through the Industrial Revolution. We catch the end of it. And then we went into the Internet Revolution. The life as we knew it changed. And my son constantly asks me, how did you go to school if you did not have Google? How did you do your homework? We did, leafing through encyclopedias. So the Internet Revolution changed everything that we do. Now the two have married, industry and internet, and it's called the industrial internet that can directly impact efficiency in energy generation and in energy consumption. GE is leading, and many others are working on this subject of what consumable products can you generate from this vast data that's out there, that's in the machines. How do you make machines talk to each other? We have, for example, now brilliant wind turbines that talk to each other in a very big area and adjust who goes first in order according to the way the wind blows. There are multiple things that we do to make machines talk to each other. And in the new Industrial Internet report from GE that we have recently submitted, we find out that combination of networks and machines could add $10 to $15 trillion to global GDP over the next 15 years. 1% reduction in jet fuel use through industrial internet applications could yield $30 billion in savings over the same period, and 1% efficiency improvement in global gas-fired power plant fleets around the world can yield $66 billion of savings in fuel consumption. So I think in this area there is much more to come, and I hope in the next year's IICEC symposium we'll have more things to discuss about industrial internet and its effects on energy efficiency.
Yes, this general trend of digitalization does not stop before entering energy. On the contrary, this is what we are going to see, and this is what we have to expect and to prepare for, to be prepared for. So we have a couple of minutes more time, and I would like to turn to the audience, whether there are some questions to our panelists. I don't think so. It was a long day, very interesting day. Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists. I think this was interesting observations, interesting statements, and hope to see you next year on the IICEC 6.